Martha, Martha. In the story we told today, Martha bustles around the kitchen, gathering up the good warm bread and dusting underneath all the tables and the chairs. She is probably picking up the children's toys and the accretions of shoes that somehow make their way to the center of every single room in her house. Sound familiar, mothers? I imagine she makes sure the chipped plate gets put in front of absolutely anybody at all but the one whom they've all been waiting for. The guest of honor in this story is, of course, Jesus himself, there in her home, sitting among them, emanating wisdom and such. And the story tells us that while Martha hustle-bustles around in this scene of ancient Hebrew domesticity, Mary, her sister, just sits there at his feet, all moony-eyed like a lump in love, just sitting there blinking into the light, beholding something she perceives to be astonishing. That is the contrast that this story sets up in the very beginning, the familiar pull, one sister working hard to make it all happen, doing the job, tending to everyone in the hustle-bustle of an ordinary, extraordinary day, and one sister simply basking, simply sitting there, saying hello to wonder, bearing witness to something she'd waited her whole life to see. And in this time-honored dichotomy set up between hustle, bustle, and beholding, we are told that Martha, dear, busy Martha, does what we are all tempted to do quite often. She complains. Jesus, she says, with a dish towel. Jesus! Do you see my sister there? Make her help me, she demands. Whereupon Jesus does what he always does in the Christian scriptures. He acts infinitely wise and quite annoying at the same time. In this case, infuriatingly, wonderfully, the man manages to pastor to Martha with utmost compassion, even as he shuts her down entirely. He works a magic spell, calling her in and calling her out at the same darn time, and his response is so spot on and effective, it makes me want to put that man on every stagnated committee in any government agency ever. You are nervous, he says to Martha. You are nervous about so many things. This whole world swirls around you and keeps you busy, but there is only one thing that really matters, he tells her. There is only one thing that is truly needful, and without ever saying exactly what that one needful thing is, he makes it real clear that it is not the dust bunnies under the couch, and it is not the chip plates. The one thing that really matters, he says to her, it's not what you're spending your energy on, Martha. It just isn't. There is a Latin phrase pulled from this scriptural narrative that captures it so much better. I am not going to quote King James at you like ever, but the Latin from which it arises is so gorgeous, I think even better than the English. It says, unum necessarium, which means only one thing is needful. Unum necessarium. The one needful thing, not the many, not it all, just one that unifies and directs the others. And over the course of the Christian tradition, it has been at times a shorthand for priority setting. Only one thing is needful, you might say to the bustling crowds around the water cooler at work. Unum necessarium, you might whisper into the ear of your spouse or daughter or friend as they bustle off to their fifth terribly important meeting of the week, or the third altogether worthy protest that month. Unum necessarium, I say to myself when I look at the piles of accumulated shoes in my own living room. Only one thing is needful, which now and always begs the question, what is that one needful thing? What is it that we must do, even if it means the dust bunnies stay under the couch and all the emails go unreturned on this day? What is the unum necessarium of a wide open life And what is the one needful thing for people who are committed not only to serving the world, but to having their spirits remain intact? When children are dying and bodies are suffering, and people around the world fight hard to maintain their illusions, when so much is lost, we ask ourselves, to what end? What is the one needful thing in the midst of it all? What tasks are we to wake up each morning to do, and or what glories are we to wake up each morning to behold? As E.B. White so famously put it, I arise in the morning, torn between a desire to save the world and a desire to savor the world. This makes it hard to plan the day. Indeed, the pull between Mary and Martha, it's a story about our own inner being. It is a metaphor for what it is to be human. This pull between doing everything we can to keep the balls in the air and the workflow accomplished, and the need to simply behold what is before us. It tugs at us all our days, and we are often unable to tell if the one needful thing has presented itself in our inbox or calls out to us from the sunshine. Today I read these little descriptions that my mom's friends and co-workers wrote about her, all the things others see in her. And I realized that it's not just that we each get some specific window into the life of someone we love. It is also that we get some specific time period, some glance into what it is to be that person as they evolve and change always over time. The mother I knew on the playground 30 years ago is not the same as the one who planned a fundraiser wearing no bra with her best friend last Thursday. My child who is obsessed with pirate ships is not the same being who will encounter his kindergarten teacher for the very first time in the fall. And indeed, that man Jesus who sat in Mary and Martha's living room would never be the same again. He was there in a specific moment, in a specific time, presenting himself to be beheld in a way that could never be recaptured. In that moment, his heart was not yet broken. His friends had not yet betrayed him. The world had not yet fallen out from beneath his feet. In that moment, with him shining in that particular way, in that place, it would never come again. Which means perhaps that such a moment, such a fleeting glimpse, that time between one thing and the next, captured as if in amber, that may just have been a moment worth staring at with moony-eyed devotion after all. And if that is just too much for you, if that is just too theological and way too Jesus-y, it's cool, I get it. Let me take the hardest pivot from the sublime to the ridiculous perhaps I have ever done in a sermon from this pulpit, as I declare an unsurprising turn of events. I pulled a gray hair out of my head this week. This in and of itself is not shocking, to be sure, and I swear there is a point and it all sticks together. You know what is magical? That once I had that gray hair in my hand and I took a moment to look at it, I saw that it was not just a gray hair, but a half gray hair. The lower 6 inches chestnut brown, the upper reaches steely white. Which means that upon my own head I had found evidence of the precise moment of an irreversible turning. All previous locks from that spot brown as a nut, all future white as a winter sky, but that one thread captured a shift that will never happen again. And I swear to you, I wrapped it around my finger, I looked at it and I said, "Hello there." Grateful to behold something changing. Not just in the world, but in me, something that will never happen again, save only this moment. I put it in the cup holder of my car, which upon reflection is kind of gross. And I went out into the day still pondering this turning time. What is it to slow down enough to notice your own self and the world around you changing? To note that nothing will ever be the same as it is right now, that this moment beheld for the span of a breath on the edge of a whole new thing is a glorious thing worth paying attention to, saying hello to, blessing with moony-eyed wonder, for it shall never come again. There is always more to do. The world will always need our action, and after all, somebody has to wash the dishes. And yet Jesus' admonition hints at a larger loyalty than even our own usefulness. And theologians have debated for centuries what that one needful thing, that unum necessarium in this story really is. Martin Luther King knew that even the busiest of activists, even the most useful of human beings, needs to point all of their doing towards some higher devotion. Perhaps better than anyone, he knew that you cannot save the world unless you have some hold on why you are doing it in the first place. And so King's theology held that the unum necessarium, the one needful thing in the midst of all the turning, is not just Martha's working, but Mary's deep and abiding love of what she encounters in this world and in this time. It is a love, he said, that feeds you, heals you, and holds you. Dr. King had his own spin on the famous letters of Apostle Paul that he called his letter to American Christians. And in it, King said it is possible for all the good works to be done for all the wrong reasons without the galvanizing force of love behind them. It is possible to do and do and do and never find the wholeness we so desire. As he wrote, American churchgoers, you may give your goods to feed the poor. You may give great gifts to charity. You may tower high above all else in philanthropy, but if you have not love, it means nothing. You may even give your body to be burned and die the death of a great martyr, but even so, if you have not love, your blood was spilt in vain. Without love, benevolence becomes egotism, and martyrdom becomes spiritual pride. Without love, without the chance to be overawed by the beauty of what's worth saving, even as it passes us by, without savoring the glory of these days somewhere down deep in our spirits, all of our useful actions ring hollow and leave us hungry for yet more meaning. Benevolence can become egotism, another way to build ourselves up or make ourselves feel better and more easily absolved for all we cannot do. Martyrdom can be spiritual pride, action can be a way to avoid contemplation, and service can be a compulsion rather than an expression of devotion. But Dr. King and young Mary sitting on the floor, gazing in rapt attention, they both indicate a powerful antidote to that. There is love. We are saved by what we do so long as what we do out of a commanding and abiding love for something greater than ourselves. Mary couldn't have stayed on her knees before Jesus, basking in his glow forever. Like the rest of us, she too needed to rise up and be a part of building a new way and breaking the empire of suffering around her. Like Martha, she had work to do. But unlike Martha, I like to think that when she did rise up and begin again, her work was not built on a shaky foundation of obligation or expectation, but on the good, solid bedrock of her own transformed soul, fallen in love with this fleeting world all over again. The world, then, will not be saved when I finally clear my inbox or you finally clear yours. Especially not if we are doing it because we think we ought to. The world will not be saved by the achievement of your organization's strategic ends, nor even by the meeting of a very generous budget, nor even by this congregation's very best social justice programs. The world will be saved by our ability to behold that which is worthy of our attention. This, after all, is love, the bearing witness. It is saying hello to a moment as it passes. It is the moony-eyed moment before all the work begins.
I know what love looks like. It looks like the uninterrupted attention.
I know what love looks like. It looks like the fertile ground from which our actions grow.
I know what love looks like. It looks like my neighbor whose survival is tied up with my own.
I know what love looks like. It looks like freedom from my own anxiety, a freedom that makes room for hope.
I know what love looks like. It looks like faith in the dawn that will come, in the word that will be spoken.
I know what love looks like. It looks like the person who risks it all for me and the one who has not ever let me go.
I know what love looks like. It looks like acts of service that have nothing to do with my own need to be needed. It looks like acts of justice that are greater than my guilt. It looks like devotion that claims the heart and calls it forward each and every day.